Hello, everybody. This is Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and Evolution Revolution. And we are reading the New Revelations by Neale Donald Walsch. And Linda Lamp's going to run the show today because I'm kind of feeling under the weather. So anyway, Linda, let me pass over the baton to you if I can figure out how to do that. Let's see. Why is this not working? Are you still there, Linda?
I am.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. I don't know why this is not working. Manage participants. Okay, so okay, I'm making you the host, Linda.
Okay.
Do you see that you're the host now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I will check back in a little bit. Take it away, Linda.
All right, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. So we're reading the New Revelations, A Conversation with God. We're on page 248. And let me see if I can get a chapter heading for you for that. As to what chapter we're in. We're in chapter 22 on page 248. And this is God speaking. We were kind of in the middle of this. Okay. So God speaking, your society might do well not to place moral judgments on alternative choices or actions. In highly evolved society, it's simply noticed whether choices and actions work or do not work in producing the result or the outcome that is collectively desired. In your own life, by taking the moral value out of your choices, you remove the moral authority from them. They never had moral authority anyway. You've been making this all up. Your earthly societies would then no longer find it possible to invoke the word of God or divine law or Shira or any other version of what is purported to be a spiritual mandate in order to justify enforcing codes of behavior or personal restrictions on everything from diet to dress to decorum. But that would lead to anarchy, everybody doing whatever they wanted based on their desire. In other words, what works and what does not work world would produce nothing but chaos. Well, much would depend on what it was you all agreed as a world society that you were trying to be, do, or have. What are you seeking to experience? If you're seeking to experience a world of peace and harmony and cooperation, then what works and what does not work could be measured against you. Currently, you are not using this measurement, or you would never do the things you are doing in your world. Now, I think it's worse than that. I think that we are seeking to create a world of peace and harmony and cooperation, but that we are unwilling to look at, unwilling to notice, and unwilling to give up all the things that are not working. They allow us to experience too much other stuff that we enjoy, such as power and self-indulgence. which means that you are not seeking to experience peace, harmony, and cooperation. If you are seeking to experience power and self-indulgence, you are saying one thing and doing another. What you really want is peace. When what you really want is peace, harmony, and cooperation, you will witness what you are doing now, assess very clearly that it is not working to bring you the experience you seek, then choose behaviors that work. I still wonder whether a world of what works and does not work could produce anything but chaos, as opposed to the peace and tranquility produced by your current right and wrong world. Okay, but at least we know when somebody has done something wrong and we can do something about it, such as punishing them and demonstrating that two wrongs make a right. It is not wrong to punish someone. That is accurate. It is not wrong to punish someone. Right and wrong do not exist. There are no such rigid standards in the universe. A thing is only right or wrong depending on whether it works or does not work in producing an outcome you wish to produce. So we get to ask again, what is it you wish to produce by punishing someone? An experience of payback, of revenge, of safety by removing a threat? Well, probably all those things. If we were to be honest, we'd probably have to say it's a little bit of all those things. But most of all, it's something that you haven't mentioned. What's that? Justice. I would say we are seeking to experience justice. Punishment is a part of our justice system. Another one of your interesting human constructions. And what exactly is justice as you understand it? It's a system by which society makes sure that what is just is what occurs. Our dictionary defines justice as the impartial adjustment of conflicting claims or the merit assignment of rewards or punishments. Wait a minute, did you say adjustment? Yes, that's what the dictionary says. Fascinating. That's very close to the basic life principle that I said your mental construction called justice was related to. Oh yeah. Looking back at the list, I see that now. You said that justice was our distorted attempt to express the basic life principle called adaptability. Yes. And adaptability is just another word for adjustment. Life always expresses the principle of adaptability. Life is, first of all, functional. That is a basic quality of life. It functions. And it functions in a particular way that allows it to keep on functioning. When functionality is threatened in any way, life defines a way to adapt or adjust in order to keep on functioning. This principle of adaptability is what is called in evolutionary theory selectivity. Life selects, through the process of life itself, the aspects or functions of all living things that allow that living thing to continue to live. By this means, a species evolves. And when it does, a third basic principle of life is expressed. Sustainability. Life becomes sustainable by adapting its functionality. All life everywhere expresses these three principles, and the principles are circular, allowing life itself to continue eternally. Life and everything in life is functional, or if it can no longer function in a particular way or mode, it adapts, adjusting whatever it needs to adjust in order to become sustainable. Sustainability creates a circling back to its being functional again and on through the cycle over and over and again, forever, even forevermore. Using what you call your justice system, your society seeks to express the principle of adaptability, fairly adjusting conflicting claims and appropriately assigning rewards and punishments. Well, it tries to. What does that mean? Does it do it or not? Well, most of the time. We like to think that it does most of the time. Most of the time. Truth is your justice system. The truth is your justice system has so many flaws in it, not the least of which is its vulnerability to influence by the rich and powerful, and its complete inaccessibility to the poor, the weak, and the downtrodden. That any resemblance between what occurs in your societies and what you dream of as justice is far too often purely coincidental. And I ask you, where is the justice in that? Well, as true as it may be, it is not an argument for not seeking justice. Listen, we can't just ignore wrongdoing. We have to set to right that which is wrong. Why not seek to make work that which does not work? When you are seeking to right a wrong, you imagine that punishment is required as a part of the process. That is because you see the wrong that was done as a moral failure rather than a functional non-viability. When, on the other hand, you seek not to punish, but simply to make something work that does not work, you merely put in a correction. You change course. You find a new way. You alter your thoughts, words, or deeds. You make an adjustment. This is a justment. So we see that justice is really a justment. It's a system of life. It's a system called life, adapting itself in order to go on in a way that works. In highly evolved societies, all of this is understood perfectly. Behavior adjustment is put in, and while consequences are part of that process, it is through the consequences that are experienced that behavior adaptation becomes desirable. Punishment is not. You're amazing, you know that? That is not something I would have ever come to. My own reasoning would never have taken me here. Well, I'm glad that you are open to getting there by whatever means. Clarity is the place to which you are going. You are moving to a place called clear. Once you are clear about these things, you will never live in confusion again. It is from this state of confusion that you have wished to remove yourself. That is the purpose of this dialogue and of your having come here. That is true for everyone who is reading this. For the moment is at hand when all the world calls upon all the people to look at all things in a new way. Yet how do we do that? See the truth. Admit the truth. Do not be self-righteous. Notice that what you are doing is evolving, adapting, and of course you are changing the rules as you go along. Not to do so would be silly. You can't live today's life by yesterday's rules. You can't even live yesterday's life by yesterday's rules. If what you choose is to live in peace and harmony, then what the world needs now is a new set of rules. That is the point I'm making here. It is the point of this entire dialogue. Functionality has all but disappeared from the human life experience. Your species cannot go on as it has been going on much longer. You are going to have to express the basic life principle of adaptability very soon now if you want life to sustain itself in its present form. Can we talk about the third life principle for just a bit? How does sustainability have anything to do with ownership? You said that ownership was a human mental construction and that it was a distorted attempt to express the life principle of sustainability. I don't understand that exactly. Life seeks to sustain itself. That is a basic life principle. You, as an expression of life, will seek to do the same thing. You have built a mental construct around how to do this that plays itself out in a social convention that you call ownership. You claim ownership over all those things that you wish to see sustained. Seeking to express the life principles of sustainability, you claim ownership of your own body, then of the body of your mate, then of your children. You say that your children are yours, and you say the same thing about your spouse, and you treat them as if you own them. So too with land and other articles of property. You have it that way, that you have it that the very planet on which you live, this sphere that revolves around the sun and spins in its majesty one complete cycle every 24 hours, is something that you actually own, at least in parcels. You have decided that this heavenly body, this celestial element, does not belong to life itself, but rather to individual human beings, or in some cases to their representatives, that is, their governments. And so you have divvied up the very earth itself, placing imaginary boundaries on that which has no boundaries, and claiming personal ownership not only of the land itself, but of the ground as far down as it goes, and the minerals and resources within it, and of the sky as far as it goes, which is, of course, forever, leading to intriguing international political questions about flyover rights and how high is up. You take these ownership rights so seriously that you start wars over them and kill and die over them, when the truth is, you cannot ever own any part of a planet in the solar system, even if it is a planet on which your species evolved. You are all merely stewards, seeking to take good care over that which you have been given stewardship, including your bodies, the bodies of your mates and children, the land upon which you live, and all else that you have in your care. These things are not your possessions, but simply articles that have been placed in your care. They are yours temporarily, only for safekeeping. You are asked by life itself to sustain them, to express the life principle of sustainability, but not to declare that you own them and that they belong to you and no one else. Such a thought is not in any lasting sense functional. Nothing that is possessed by anyone is possessed by them forever. Nothing. Things may be in your possession. They are not your possessions. Ownership is a temporary fiction. It is an invention of the mind, and like all mental constructions, it is temporary, having nothing to do with ultimate reality. As with all of your social conventions, the idea of ownership arises from the fallacies that you hold as firm beliefs. In this case, the second fallacy about life, which is that there is not enough, or whatever it is you think you need to be happy. There is enough of everything you really need to be happy. but you do not believe it. And so you seek to own whatever it is that you most desire, imagining that if you own it, you can keep it forever, that no one can take it away from you, and that you can do what you want with it. And that from this experience of ownership will come your security, your sustainability, and your happiness. Nothing could be further from the truth, as anyone who owns many things can tell you. Still, the idea persists. This idea that you can own things has caused more harm to your psyche and more damage to your species than you could ever know. This is because you think that ownership gives you rights that you do not intrinsically have. Oh man, there is so much here, so much to understand, to absorb. I've never had a conversation like this before. I sometimes feel as if I have to go over everything that's being revealed to me 4 or 5 times in order for it to really understand it, to really get it. And that is why I have repeated several times much of what has been said here. Now you understand. So, what can I take from this conversation that I can use as a tool to help life go on? Don't worry about life itself. It will go on, I promise you. You could not put an end to life if you wanted to. Life will simply adapt to whatever conditions have been created and continue. Yet if you want life to continue in its present form, if you want life to go on as it has been on Earth, you're going to have to create the adaptation that life now needs to make, rather than stand by and simply watch it occur. That is what this dialogue invites you to do. That is what this conversation is about. It is an invitation to you to create the world of your grandest dreams, to end the nightmare of your present reality, and to discover the tools with which to do that. Should we pause or should we keep going? There's still quite a bit in this chapter. I mean, we can finish the chapter, certainly. Anybody have some thoughts?
I'm happy either way, Linda.
Say what?
I'm happy either way.
Okay, anybody else? Keep going?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll read till the end of the chapter then. This is Neil. Do you think the world is ready to do this? Can we play an active, conscious role in our own evolutionary process? The world is more ready for this than it has ever been. The world is hungry. The world is starving for a new spiritual truth, a truth that works in sustaining life, not a truth that brings an end to life. The world is searching for a new spiritual path, begging for a new set of understandings. Most of its people simply do not dare to say so publicly. Saying so would mean having to acknowledge that the world's present spiritual path is not getting humans where they say they want to go. It's very difficult, and it can be very fearful for people to go against the prevailing notion of things, even when the prevailing notion of things is killing them. Then what's to be done? Encourage people to become the spiritual leaders for which they hunger, to provide the leadership for which they are starving. But what about their fear? Ask them what they are afraid of. An end to their way of life? The loss of their personal safety and security? What they are afraid of has already occurred. Look at your world. The last vestiges of your way of life disappeared on September 11, 2001. Nobody can be safe and secure anymore if you are using human standards of what that is. The challenge now is not to keep from losing your safety and security, but to get it back. You can seek to accomplish this at the physical level by using bombs and tanks and soldiers and economic or political might. Or you can choose to accomplish this at the spiritual level by changing beliefs. The first belief you can change is the belief that you can somehow not be safe and secure. Loss of safety and security is an illusion, given who and what you are. If you are using human standards, you have lost these things. If you are using spiritual measures, you can never lose these things. Inner peace is not achieved by outward means. Inner peace is achieved by understanding who you are. When inner peace is attained, outer peace becomes possible at last. In the absence of inner peace, outer peace is impossible, as your species has discovered over and over again, and as it is discovering once more right now. The outer peace of your worldwide society is so very fragile because the inner peace of your worldwide society is virtually non-existent. Your world keeps falling apart, and you keep trying to put it back together using the wrong tools. You keep trying to get the world to change its behaviors rather than its beliefs. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But God can, and God will, as soon as you allow God to. For God is the essence of inner peace, but not the God about whom you have been taught, not the God of anger and war, not the God of death and destruction, and not the God of guilt and retribution. Not the make-believe God in whom you have made yourself believe, but the God of unconditional love in whom you have your very being. If the world were taught of this God, the world would change. Yet where are the courageous spiritual leaders who will give up the God of fear to teach about the God of unconditional love? Could you be one of them? Spiritual leaders do not have to be members of the clergy. Regular, ordinary, everyday people can be spiritual leaders. Plumbers, doctors, salesmen can be spiritual leaders. Corporate executives, members of the police force, and members of the military can be spiritual leaders. Hardware store owners, mechanics, nurses, and flight attendants can be spiritual leaders. Television anchors, print media reporters, and politicians can be spiritual leaders. Teachers and baseball players, grocery store managers and movie stars, postal workers and research scientists, and exotic dancers who take off their clothes in public can be spiritual leaders. Do you understand this? Do you hear what I'm saying? This is the opportunity. This is the challenge. This is the invitation. And so the idea now is not to hide out, but to come out so that others will find the courage to do the same, and all the world may know that it is not alone. What can people do? Give us some concrete steps. Now I'm going to call you on being repetitious. We've discussed this all before. Please go over it again, lay it out for me once more, all in one place, summarize it. I need to hear it again one more time, one last time. The first thing they can do is take the 5 steps to peace. They can acknowledge that they've been doing up until now no longer works. if it ever worked. The bravest among them can do so publicly. They can say, hey, wait a minute. Has anyone noticed what we're doing here is not working? Yes, I was saying earlier that we could publish the 5 Steps to Peace in newspapers and magazines and get high-profile people to sign on to them. We could then put them on billboards and handouts and hold meetings around them and begin dialogues, discuss where humanity can go from here. Then we could put the building blocks in place for a new spirituality, a spirituality that will not be a complete rejection of the old, but that will bring up people a new and larger understanding of ancient truths and some new truths to go with them. We could use the new revelations found here as a starting point for explorations that lead to the deepest revelations within each human heart. We could make it clear that these new revelations are not the answer, but only an answer, one inspiration that could lead to many others. Yes, do not seek to make the new revelations a new religion, but rather allow the new revelations to reveal the simple and awesome truth that new revelation is possible. In so doing, you empower humanity to reveal true humanity to humanity itself. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear that? I said, empower humanity to reveal true humanity to humanity itself. For when true humanity is revealed, it will be found to be godly. End of chapter.
You were breaking up, Linda.
Yep.
I mean, you really deeply and passionately felt what you were reading.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am living this chapter.
In a place
Yeah.
as seemingly remote as Seward, Alaska, is really something.
Well, this town, I mean, I know people have heard me talk about it before. This town, I don't believe in evil, but if I did, this is the seat of it. There's something very strange here. Very strange. I mean, like, there's like 13 churches, and yet you can feel the hate. It's so for me personally, this last week was extremely difficult, and I don't know, for those of you that are familiar with the myth of Sisyphus, the guy that rolls the rock up the mountain and then it rolls back down on top of him. That's where those of us that are been trying to do this exact same work that this chapter's all about. We've been trying to do it now for months. We've been doing it. We haven't been trying. We've been doing it for months. And you know, you think you're seeing progress, and then something happens and you're back under the rock. I mean, flattened under the rock. So it's been very interesting. There's great resistance to doing the work that's in this chapter out in the world. Great resistance among people. Change is difficult, and I'm sure everybody's heard the saying, you know, people don't change. That's not actually true. People are capable of change, but it is not easy, because what's easy is to just keep doing what we've been doing, even though we know it doesn't work. Because this change requires each individual to change, right? And that's the hardest work there is. It's much easier to point your finger at somebody else and say, you need to do this. It's very difficult to take that finger and point it at yourself and go, I need to do this. And then hold yourself accountable. But that's the challenge that humanity is facing. Over.
Linda, I'm sure you put yourself in that place where you're living because you wanted to take on that challenge. And I'm sure you're doing a lot already there.
I don't know if any of you saw my Facebook post yesterday, but my Facebook post yesterday said I woke up in tears and I'm tired of being a crusader. And that's just how I felt. I mean, this is a crusade. It is. We are in a crusade right now, whether people realize it or not. That's what's happening. There are those of us that are in this work. They're doing this work. They're doing exactly what this chapter talks about. And that to me feels like a crusade of a form. And there's just so much resistance out in the world to it, you know. But yeah, I'm Sarah. I was put here. The hand of God placed me right here. Everything brought me right to this place. And that's the thing. It's like, it's the feeling of having a contract. Like, okay, you have a job to do. I have a job to do. Well, and people who have regular jobs, sometimes you just don't want to go do that job that day. Sometimes you just don't feel like it, you know. And that's just, you know, we get tired. And I think when that happens, we just need to step back and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first, because you can't go out and do this work if you're not taking care of yourself, because then you will get depleted and you'll get sick, and then you won't be able to serve yourself, much less anybody else. Over.
That's so true, Linda. Yes.
It's touching and heartbreaking to hear your distress, Linda, because you've never ever expressed it before. When you've spoken about your conflict with people in the council in the past, you've been up and at 'em. So this is really different.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that it's the experience of this energy that's birthing here. I said to somebody the other day, it feels like we're giving birth to a 50-legged dragon. I mean, you push and and then there's this experience of, well, I wasn't expecting that, you know. Like we know what the process of a birth means, right? We all have a concept of what it means. And so this is like it's a breech birth. It's a difficult birth. It's going to happen. It's ultimately, I have complete faith that this new energy and that this new world of love that functions, a world that functions, that's what we're here to create. I think that sometimes the 2 steps forward, 1 step back ends up being something that's unexpected. And I think, so that's what I experienced this week was, and just to put the pieces together, to put it in context so that it makes sense. So the city had a city manager for 7 years that basically just drove it into the ditch, not necessarily financially, but emotionally, right? Just the town with this guy, he was a pot stirrer, and it was just terrible. So by the time he ended up no longer there, town had shredded itself. It was just nasty and ugly and awful. And that's about the time where it became very clear to me somebody had to step up and try and navigate this nightmare that they were living in. And so people asked for that person to show up, and it seemed like that was me. And so I stepped into this role, and I've been doing this role of civic engagement and trying to use education as the piece to navigate through all of the hate and the hostility and the name calling and all this other stuff. And they hired a city manager on an interim basis that came in, and he was exactly what they needed. He was perfect. You know, he wasn't a perfect person, and he wasn't perfect in every way, but he was perfect for what they needed. And it showed them what a professional would be, what a professional who doesn't stir the pot, and how the town could function in that way. And so we were on this crest, right? We were on this like, yes. And so then they have to go, because he was just temporary. They had to find the next one. And they found a lady, but she didn't end up taking the job, and they offered it to this next guy. And somehow, it fries your brain. Somehow he's exactly like the guy from the 7 years. Like, exactly. So that's why I say it's like this feeling of the myth of Sisyphus, because you put this effort in, and you put the effort in, and you put the effort in, and then all of a sudden if you're not right back where you started from, you're further back from where you were. And it can be discouraging, and it can be depleting. And we have to acknowledge that. We wouldn't be honest with ourselves if we don't acknowledge that. And even if you want to call me a spiritual leader, whatever you want to call me, Shabana, but even in that role, it's important, I think, to be honest, and even to reveal the struggle, because I wouldn't be honest with myself or with anybody else if I didn't reveal the struggle. And that's why I actually really felt it was important to make that post and to say, I'm tired, I'm bone tired, and acknowledge it, because there are others out there doing the same work that are also bone tired, that need to acknowledge that for themselves. And I think that we get caught up into the doing, and it's really important to realize that it's really, really, really just about being. How are you being? It's not about the doing. We can get distracted by that. So I hope that kind of puts it all in context for people.
Very, very sad story. So is the current one in permanently?
Well, we shall see. We shall see. The thing that happened is that I had a meeting with him on Tuesday, and it was a disaster. And one of the things that he said was that, he kind of got in my face about how both sides, I said something about, the town hired you to be a fixer. And he said, and that's what I am, but, this place, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of got in my face about it. And then he made the following statement. He said, I didn't listen to any council meetings or read any of this stuff minutes before I took this job. And if I had, I wouldn't have. Well, at that point, you should just go. He's only been here 5 weeks. He should just go. Because, that's crazy. If you've already decided, shit, I wouldn't have taken this job if I'd known what it was like, well, then it's not the right job, right? But there's council, that's the thing. The council is fairly split between the darkness and the light. You got 3 light workers, you got 3 dark workers, and then you got somebody in the middle, depending on how he feels, to split the vote. So they can't even, the problem that they're having right now is they can't even get together and have a meeting. But the contract is such that, yes, he could just leave, and the firm that found this guy has a clause in their thing where you have up to 2 years. If the guy doesn't work out, they have up to 2 years to go back to the firm and say, go find us someone new. So no, it's not a done deal. It's in transition, but the problem now is that this is what cracks it open for town, right? This is what cracks it open. Because they're going to have to decide.
Where did the interim guy go? Where did the interim guy go?
The interim guy took another job, and that's right. You know, that was the right thing. It all happened perfectly, right? How could it be anything but perfect? You have to come back to that. It's all perfect. And he may come back someday. That's how great of a relationship he has with everybody here, and that's how highly he was thought of. But this is, see, if he'd stayed, I mean, you can look at it. When you look at this stuff just from the energetic side of things, you can see where if that guy had stayed, yeah, town would have been good. But there's actually a potential here for town to be even better. Because with him staying, it wouldn't have cracked open what's been cracked open and revealed now. So now there's something new here for people to take a look at. So the thing is that when you're in that state, it's really, I think as a human being, it's very difficult to just stay neutral, right? So we're in this state right now where it's all unknown again. Because there's a bunch of people thought, okay, you hired him, great, everything's good, we can all go back to sleep. And now within 5 weeks, 6 weeks, it's like, wait a minute, something's happening. No, something's wrong. Oh no, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're going to have to just decide. And either way they go, it's absolutely perfect. Doesn't matter which way it goes, right? It's still going to be perfect. And so the challenge, like for me as the individual involved in it, is to just allow, right? I'm not trying to influence. I'm just allowing and experiencing what's happening. I may not enjoy the experience of what's happening, but that's okay.
Just a second. Now, we are entrusted with the responsibility of changing values. So as a light worker, that's what you were doing, and that's where you were so disappointed. Yes or no?
Well, certainly what we see is the new world of love and cooperation and peace and harmony, right? We see that world and we're moving towards it. But I don't think it's right to say that we're trying to change people. I think what we're doing, I think if it's going to work, what we can only do is reveal the new world through our own beliefs and actions. And if other people change, that's their choice. We can't change anybody. They change on their own. We can only present something new for them to see. And it's their choice. So no, yes, the third dimension part of me is disappointed that this is where we are. Absolutely. I wouldn't be honest if I didn't admit that, yes, it feels very disappointing. It feels very deflating. It feels very discouraging to be where we are. And at the same time, it's absolutely perfect. Can't be anything other than that because everything's divinity and expression.
Like your president.
Yeah, like everything. It's the conundrum of life. Because ultimately it comes back to who are you being? Who are you being? Who am I being? It doesn't matter who the other people are being and what they're doing.
But we do have an emotional investment in this.
We have an emotional experience. I think it's best not to have an emotional investment.
Okay, let me make an investment in the meditation.
The meditation, perfect.
Here we are, Lord God, bringing this bipolar world to you with our hearts, firmly believing that a change of value within each one of us is what is bringing comfort to the heart of the world and to the heart of everyone else. And as we meditate, we are bringing Nanette's heart to comfort as well. Linda's doing her best in C-word, and each one of us is doing our best wherever we are, because we are here now together to seek a higher, better, more peaceful heart for ourselves and thereby the world. Amen. Okay, my timer's off.
Thank you, Shabana.
You're welcome. Thank you, Linda. That was really very touching.
You're welcome. I still hear that timer.
I'm going to turn this thing off. Oh dear. It's nice to laugh at the end. That was heavy.
All right. Well, let's everybody hold Nanette in our hearts.
Yes, thank you so much for all your sharing, Linda. Is very, very impressive what you're doing.
Well, I don't know about that, but it seems like a perfect environment with which to try to apply the principles. So,
Well, the thing is, people who benefited, they die first, then say that they've benefited, you know? If you see what I'm saying, they gotta save face somehow.
yeah, I understand.
So you don't know how they really feel, but old habits die hard.
Yeah, right. Right, and that's what we all need to just remember, is that change is difficult for people. And so we need to be patient and loving and kind. And everybody's going through their own thing.
Well, I'm holding you in my heart just as much as Nanette.
Well, thank you.
And it does say in this, what we've just read, that all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty Dumpty together, but God can and God will if we let him.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, God can, God will. Yeah. All right, ladies. Anything else before we end the meeting? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and end it. I thank you all for joining, and we'll be here back next week on chapter, what was it, 23? Yeah, chapter 23. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.